Hello and welcome back to Snow White and the Seven Does podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited because this week we have our first ever guest on the show.
Hello.
This is my brother, Parker. Do you want to tell them a little bit about yourself?
My name is Parker. In my free time, I like to read fantasy books and sci-fi books and want to eventually write a series of my own. And I am a gamer, play a lot of games, and read manga and comic books too. So
Cool. Yeah, he's a pretty cool person, and he's probably the smartest person that I know, and also the most insightful. You think very deep. Where do you think you got that from?
spending a lot of time alone, probably.
Same.
And also, I've worked. Probably working. I worked with homeless people for a year and a half at a shelter as a front office person, but it was kind of basically like a security guard / I provided a lot of the things they needed, like towels, laundry stuff for showers, stuff to help them get through their life. Also, like helping them get in contact with their social workers and things like that. And I met a lot of different types of people through that, and I saw a lot of different ideas on what they thought was the best way to live life. And some things I agreed with, and some things I learned to disagree with. And maybe before that, I did a lot more of agreeing and looking at people as though they were really wise or something. And then I started to see the flaws in people, and not really the flaws, but the flaws in their ideas. And maybe the way I look at it, I think it's a flaw, and for somebody else, it could totally work. But basically, I started to kind of find myself in that way, like learn about, I think that this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing, and start to kind of carve out the way of life that I live through that.
So what would you say that your outlook on life is?
I don't know, it changes often. It's just, I think I am not very opinionated, but when I have an opinion, maybe I'll be opinionated about it for a little bit, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm really not. I change my mind a lot. And my outlook on life really is, I guess right now, is that we kind of came here over time as a slow progression of evolution, starting with small life forms and eventually being what we are now. And I don't really find too much spiritual presence in it. More of like unless you find spiritual presence in just like the way things happen in the universe and how it could be magical and the fact that it even happened. But I don't really see like an identity behind it or feel the super strong identity behind it. I just feel like it's the universe doing its thing, and that thing is pretty cool.
So do you believe in like a higher power? Is like, would you say like the universe is a higher
I kind of go
power,
off and on with it.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to be completely honest with myself, I would probably say in the very back of my head, yes. But I also struggle with it because the higher powers that are defined in our world right now are like the ones that are the biggest ones that people look towards.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things within those that I'd feel uncomfortable about, and not to defy God's thing or anything like that. But I don't want to subscribe to a God that I don't really fully agree with. And at the same time, I don't really feel like God's, if there was such a thing as an ultimate power like that made the whole universe, I don't think that they would be so focused in on one planet in one area of one galaxy. I don't think they would have rules for us like that, have things for us like that, and even have even much care about the chaos that went on here, because it's just it's like one flower in a huge garden. And
Yeah.
And now that we've learned that, they used to, when the Bible was made, they used to think that the earth was the center of the universe and everything revolved around it, or everything went around it, something like that. I'm not exactly right about it, but they definitely thought that earth was the center, even compared to the sun, like more center than the sun, even in our own space of space.
I like to think like that there's a higher power that kind of walks with me, like that's within me, but it's kind of like I'm a creation of it. Like, when you create something and it's like an extension of yourself or like an expression of yourself, that's kind of how I view God in a sense. It's not like I'm meant to follow like a rigid path. It's more so like going outside and watching a sunset, like I'm like, thank you, God. Or getting quality time with family and being present in that moment, I'm like, thank you, God. You know what I mean? But I don't really think that it's like structured religion and standardized religion now, where it's like you have to be this and shouldn't be this. I don't agree with that either.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely be thankful for the nice things in life, but I don't know if I say thank you to God or if I just am thankful that things turned out the way they turned out. Just like divine
Yeah.
domino effect of butterfly effect of everything that's happened.
Do you show
Being at peace.
gratitude?
Because there's still such tragic things that happen too, like
Yeah.
even in, I mean, in all of our lives, but like things that you can't help that just happen. Like people, like I guess the most prominent example would just be like a young child dying, and they didn't do anything wrong to deserve the death, but then they died.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other things like pets dying in really tragic ways, or hurting somebody in a way that you didn't intend to hurt them, and those sorts of mistakes or those sorts of things that are really unavoidable until it happens, and you didn't have any intention of the bad thing happening, but the bad thing still happens. Those sorts of things happen too. So it's like, yes, you could be thankful to God, but then you're also like, okay, so the opposite also happens. So then are you like, oh, well then I guess that's the devil's work? Or are you just like, this is the balance of the universe and things are beautiful because there's good and because there's bad?
I'm not really necessarily sure. I mean, I don't have all the answers, but in some scale, like, I mean, I do believe in karma, and I'm not really sure if, like, sometimes you reap karma from past lives, but also, I don't know. I don't know if it's a devil's work or anything, but there is free will, or there's said to be that there's free will. So sometimes, like, for instance, like a young child dies, I guess, like, it's different from, like, a car accident or cancer or something like that, which is sometimes caused from environmental factors and other times caused from like a godly event. So I'm not sure why. If
Yeah, like it's as similar as a car accident. Some of it, it's like
yeah.
tragic events that happen and there's really no avoiding them. I mean, there's like, yes, there's avoiding them in hindsight, but you didn't have the intention of hurting someone when it happened, but it still happened, or like something like that. And it just like, it's a kind of like the opposite of those beautiful moments, and it's like maybe that's just part of the yin and yang sort of thing of the universe, and it's not really, this is not a God making these things happen. It's just like bad happens and good happens, and that's it, and it goes to both extents. And I'm sure there's even there's good that happens that we don't see that's probably amazing, and then there's bad that happens that we don't see that's probably way worse than we could even imagine.
I know we've talked about in the past, like you believing in past lives. He's probably, like if he wants to learn something, he'll learn it in a day. Like he'll learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube, you'll learn how to skateboard, you'll learn how to do a backflip, you'll learn how to do anything in a day. And you told me once, like, you believe it's because you've lived multiple lives and it's just easy for you to pick up because you've mastered it in a past life. Is that something you still stand on, or?
I don't know. I don't remember saying that, but I don't know. I don't know. I think that the lives that you're learning, or the things that you're learning in life are much not really like skills like that. Maybe I thought that at one point, but I don't think the things that we're really learning in life are like how to be a good painter, or like how to draw better or something like that. It's more like deep ingrained things like how to be selfless, or how to give compassion without wanting anything in return, like things like that. Like, and when you get over those hurdles, which are bigger leaps of faith in a way, like you have to jump into the unknown and not in order to do a lot of those things and not expect anything back.
It's like faith. It's
and
like
I think those are maybe the things that you learn in your past lives, because you come into this life, or maybe like addictions too. Like addictions are really big things that maybe in past lives I learned, and that's why I think, because it's hard for me to deal with the fact of like some people are addicted to meth and I'm not, and why am I not? Like, am I just lucky? Am I just it's just kind of, it messed with me for a long time, those types of things. And going further, like some people are,
you don't think
murders.
It's like a choice? You don't think that's like sometimes there's like like maybe there's like a path that
no,
you
I know.
have to
Maybe it's a
follow,
choice, but if I live in a sea of thoughts that have everything in it, it's like, who am I to make the choice? How am I so confident in my choices? That's basically what it is. Like, you can so easily grab to the other choice. What makes you so sure that you're going to grab the good one? Like that sort of thing is massive.
I mean, if you have someone come up to you and say like, I want to try meth, you don't think that that's like an obvious choice of what's right and wrong?
Yeah, but some people make the wrong choice.
Yeah, some people.
So what makes me any better than them to make the right choice?
Well, I don't necessarily think that you're better than them.
Well, what made me make the better decision? That's what's hard to figure out.
Maybe
it's
how
like
you were raised, or how you like.
But some people
your
do
moral
meth even when
systems
they're
are.
good and raised in good environments.
Yeah.
And some people become horrible things when they're raised in good environments. It's like same thing. Like some people do terrible things in the name of good things. Like I think a lot of terrorists think that they're doing good stuff, probably.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of wars get started over religion. A lot of things get started. Yeah.
Even like joining the army in a way, it's like you think you're doing an amazing thing, but a lot of people come back with trauma because you hurt other people that you didn't expect to hurt.
Well, and it's almost like you don't have a choice in whether or not to hurt them. They just it's like a mission that you're sent on.
You're taught to react in a certain way. It's like it's very weird.
What do you think the best advice that you've ever gotten is?
I was late. I used to be late a lot to things, and I would miss my alarm, sleep in, whatever, and I would stress out a lot about it. And then one time someone told me, "Is like you're not the first one that's going to be late, and you're not the last. So don't rush and don't hurt yourself on the way there, like in a car crash or whatever else, or like sort of thing, or like in any way, like you're not. Basically, it kind of meant like you're not as important as you think you are. Like you don't need to always get there on time. You don't need to always get an A on the project or get 100%, or you don't need to always try to show off for some sort of reason, because you're not the first one that's going to do that, and you're not the last one that's going to do that, and it's not the biggest deal whether or not you do. So just do you and do the best you can, and don't expect any more.
In yoga, we were taught like the virtues of life. It's like how you treat yourself and how you treat others. And one of the main key factors of how you treat others was actually showing respect of other people's time, because time is the one thing that you can't get back. It's the one currency that is just like you can't get back. So making sure that you don't disrespect other people's times was one of the huge like values that they held.
Yeah, I agree with that, sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the worst piece of advice you've ever gotten is?
Money rules everything. A homeless person told me that. He was at the homeless shelter, and he's like, I don't know if that was exactly how he said it, but he's like, money is the end all be all. That's basically really what he believed. He would get out there and work every day, and he was working like jobs that you would get paid the day of. So he's at the end of the day not really saving or putting away that much money, and I don't know what he was doing in his free time, but he would always tell me that like money is the number one thing, and if you're not chasing money, then you're not living life. And I think that's probably bad advice, because I feel like even though it's scary to not chase money and to do things that you want that's not to do with money,
happiness doesn't come from money. Being rich is like having good relationships, having good producing something that you're. But
also it's almost like if you don't worry about it as much, you can make more in a way. Like if you really
don't put it on a pedestal.
If you really kind of get it out of your mind, you can kind of make more in a way. Like you could still have it as one of your pillars of things to do, but you don't have to prioritize it over everything else, because in that case it's almost like gambling, because nothing's guaranteed. You don't need to put money as your number one thing. It's just like you put other things, and then if money comes, it'd be nice about it, and it kind of gives you some, I don't know what it's called, but when someone pats you on the back for doing something, then you're doing good. It's like basically if you get money for doing something that you're doing, then you're probably doing a decent job at it. But yeah, if you're only chasing money with it, normally it doesn't work out.
Yeah, if you're doing something because you love it, then usually it like takes away the, like you're chasing a dream or a goal because you love it and you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
And then when you align with that and you release needing money, that's like kind of how they say manifestation works too, is once you take away the need for it, then it comes. When you take it off the pedestal and you take away like I need this in order to be happy.
Yeah.
No, you be happy now, and then this will come, and it's like an additive.
Yeah. I think you need to say you don't need it. You need to get rid of all needs, and then the needs become easier to achieve, to be honest. It's like once you let go of all of it, there's like something that's like when you let go of it all, then you have it all in a way. Like it's something like that where, if you you don't have to let go of it like you're shunning it. You just let go of it as in it doesn't rule you anymore, and you still just live your life without that ruling you, and then those things come without just like by on their own.
Well, you taught me this, like how it's more so an internal journey because it doesn't matter where you are, what you're looking out outside of you or in the 3D world. Like once you told me, it was a couple years back, but you said it doesn't matter if I'm on a beach in France or I'm at home in my room, I'm still like in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to control your mind and releasing what you said, like the need for things, and then just being at peace, that's when you find like contentment, and then things
like it's
naturally.
obviously nice to be. It would be nice to be at, like a beach in France or some beach somewhere, versus being in like a black dark room or something like that. Like if you had like boarded walls or like a prison cell. But at the same time, I think that they're not as different as sometimes people think they are. It's like you're not really anywhere different. You're still inside of your head, inside of your body, inside of yourself. And some people are able to get out of themselves a little more. Maybe it's just because I struggle with being in not necessarily like stuck in my own thoughts, but kind of like in my own imagination, my own world. That it's not that much different. But obviously, I don't think I would never want to be locked in prison or anything like that.
Yeah.
I would never like volunteer for that.
Would you volunteer to isolation retreat, like monks go on like silent retreats and things like that? Or just kind of more so in your mind?
I 100% would.
I would 100% do that too.
And even not even in isolation, like the ones in a group too.
Yeah.
If you're in a group but you don't talk with each other, but maybe you're still in a group and you. I heard something or read this one. I don't know if I read it or it was someone talking. Someone went on a retreat like that and they put them all into like a closed room, probably like this room here, but it was outside and there was no air conditioning and it's really hot in there. And they put probably like 50 people in a room this big and made them all stand shoulder to shoulder, chest to back, and be in the room for like an hour or 2 hours, or I don't know how long, but a long time without speaking, and they're all sweating and there's like flies in there, but they can't swat them because their arms are pinned to their sides because there's so many people.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah, but it was like part of the meditation. It's like so it's like detaching from your senses. But I don't think I'd be able to do that. It would be hard for me to do that. I'm even on an airplane. If the air conditioning doesn't work on the airplane, which has happened a few times that I've been on a plane, and it's hot on the plane, it's almost like I want to get off. Like it's hard for me to stay on because I feel claustrophobic. And that's just from being in close proximity with people and then everybody breathing the same air. And not because I'm grossed out by germs, but because I start imagining like the air is getting used up too much. Like something like that. And I can't breathe. Like I feel like I'm not getting enough oxygen.
There's like a meditation practice, or I'm not sure if it's like a meditation practice, but one of my coworkers once showed it to me. Her friend did it. And she was like, yeah, it's extremely meditative and you have to just like control your mind and release all the senses, because what they do is they'll pierce your back, like pierce 2 things in your back, and then hang you from those piercings that they just pierced. And then you just like levitate like from that, and it's like you're hanging from like 2.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
In my book right now, there's like one of the main characters getting tortured on a water wheel. He basically is underneath a castle that he's not supposed to be underneath of, and then he got taken to be part of the workforce in the forge, and then he got in trouble when he was in the forge, and then the guy that runs the forge, Dr. Inch, who's like some big ogre guy with one eye, he ties him to a water wheel, so he's like strapped with his arms up and his legs down, and the wheel just keeps turning, and he's there for days.
Oh.
And he's just turning slowly, and he's like kind of like right on his wrist, but it becomes like a very meditative experience because he leaves his body and goes to a kind of like an in-between world and talks with somebody, and then comes back out and gets the power to live on while somebody tries to untie him. But he's been there for so long. But yeah, I think extreme pain, at least people think that extreme pain can lead to spiritual experiences, but I don't think it would lead to that for me. I mean, at least I wouldn't want to try it that way. I'd much rather do something else for a spiritual experience than the extreme pain.
Maybe that's what Jesus felt like when he was hung on the cross.
Yeah, something like that. Like it would be like an out-of-body experience. So you'd have to, you'd have to. I mean, same thing with like people that have been tortured and stuff like that. Like, there's humans that have dealt with it from Hitler and whoever else. But you would have to freaking somehow escape reality in order to not go literally crazy. I mean, you probably couldn't. I mean, obviously, if you're burning or something, it'd be so hard to leave your feelings behind because you're just in so much pain. But I think that there's like a certain threshold where maybe it just becomes like it's so much that it can't even process in your brain anymore. Just like
yeah. They say that sometimes when you have traumatic events, your brain like forgets it.
Yeah.
So you can deal with it. It just like erases the memory almost.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go into something a little more positive, or maybe more positive. But when do you feel most like your authentic self? Like when do you feel most authentic to you?
When I've spent a week away from people, something like that, a few days away from people. I feel like I take the small influences from everybody, which is a good thing. That's how you learn about yourself. Is you, like what I said about the homeless shelter, like you take things that you like, you don't take things that you don't like. But eventually, to be cordial with people, sometimes you take more things than needed just to kind of get on their level. And at least I do that.
You want to fit in, kind of, yeah?
Yeah, kind of fit in, just to not cause any arguments or whatever. I mean, yeah, you can be your true self all the time, but sometimes my true self can be problematic, and maybe that's because I need to work on how I say things. I could be too direct or sound mean sometimes. But yeah, if I spend a few days alone, I sort of get away from the ego a little bit and stop trying to want to do things for other people, either to make them happier or to make them like me more or something like that. It's not that I want to stop doing things for people to help them, but a lot of times I just do things to people to make my image better in their eyes. And I don't always feel like that's even a good thing, but
I feel like it's hard to find like sources of expression like for your true self. Like when I'm creating, like trying to think of podcast ideas or trying to do art or things like that, I can't think if I'm not alone. Like if I can't have a prolonged period where I'm by myself, it stunts my creativity. And I feel most alone when I'm in crowded rooms because I feel most misunderstood, I guess. Yeah.
I feel about the same, and whether I'm in crowded rooms or alone. Like, I used to feel lonely a lot, and then I started thinking, like, I don't know if I started thinking or if it was, like, a realization, but I kind of just realized that you're always going to feel lonely. Like, I can't express myself the way I want to with my words. Through, like, the things that are actually going on in my head, I can't really express that. So,
that's
because
not
I
true.
can't...
With the certain people or with...
With anybody.
Really, with anybody, you think?
Yeah.
You don't think, like, even if you had a therapist, you
like,
could...
I just don't think I have the words for it. Like, I don't have the words. I can't put it into words. So, it's just, like, a sort of chaos that I can't put into words, and I can't really put a finger on even what it is for myself. Like, I can't even really explain it to myself. And it's sort of like trying to explain a mushroom trip to somebody or something like that. Like, it's never taken mushrooms. It's like, well, it's sort of this happens and this happens, but it doesn't really... The person can't understand it until they do it. Or, like, trying to explain what weed feels like to someone who's never smoked weed. It doesn't really get there. It's sort of like that sort of feeling. So it's like, if you always have that sort of feeling, then certain topics are just untouchable to even reach a bottom line with. And those topics are the topics that soothe the loneliness. So if you're never going to get there, it doesn't matter if you're around 5 people or 10 people or 100 people or one best friend or nobody. It's the same feeling of loneliness.
Do you feel like you are your own entity, or do you feel like we're all like
no,
as a
I feel
human
like we're all
race?
connected.
Yeah.
I don't feel like we're that different either. So that's another thing is like I don't really feel lonely because I feel like I know people pretty well. Not that I know them. It's just that I know myself. So and I know a few other, and I know quite a few people. It's like I start to see the similarities in people, and I see more similarities than I see differences.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I mean, I think the differences are good for us to have. It's like we're all like a different piece of the same puzzle, basically.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think makes you unique?
I think I have a more vivid imagination in terms of seeing visual things than maybe more people do. I feel like, I mean, at least talking to some people, like some people that I know don't even dream really.
Yeah.
And I dream every night, and I dream vividly, and I daydream too. And when I was a kid, I used to want to daydream, and I couldn't do it. And now and as I got older, I started to see that it's not really like a hallucination. It's not like it's putting it over the top of everything in front of you. Although sometimes it can sort of feel like that. It's more just like a image deep inside of you that you resonate with and that you get the feelings from, but you also still see what's in front of you at the same time, but you can kind of put that in the background a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I want to dedicate my life to cultivating that and getting better at that because I don't know. One other thing I realized or had a little bit of a thought about was that everything is made from imagination.
Yeah.
All movies, all buildings, all thing that's been put on Earth was made from somebody's imagination, or at least started at the imagination. And why can't I, also train my imagination? It's like the most fundamental thing to train and to get better at. And it's also a really nice thing to get better at. It's like,
yeah,
it feels like you're drinking water in some sort of way. It's like a water for the soul. As when you train your imagination, it feels like the right thing to do. It feels like a good thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's a very man-made or human attribute is that, yeah, like everything is created from our mind. Everything was a thought. And that's why now the system that is created, it's man-made. So when we see the flaws in it, we can also take it away because it was man-made. So, yeah. What do you think, what makes you happiest?
Seeing the seeing the deepness in other people, I guess. I don't know why I don't know if that really even makes much sense. But whenever I started reading, I guess the way that you can get over that loneliness thing is, at least for me, that I found, is from reading. Because you can get peeks behind into those deepest parts of people's selves through their books. And that's the first time I really saw those parts of people. Before that, I kind of felt like the Pink Floyd song, like, hello, like, are you really there? I forgot what that song is, but it's like basically he's asking, like, is someone really behind those eyes that I'm looking at? Like, when he's talking to somebody else, he's like, are you a real person? Are you real like me? Sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's not like I thought I was the only real person or anything, but I struggled to get to the part of people that felt real, like really real, and not just like
surface level or
or like a little bit below surface level, like meta conversations about aliens or whatever. But when you start to see, or at least for me, when I read, I would feel like it's so real, like it's so real. It's like you can't predict what the next sentence is going to be because it's not something that's in your head. It's not something that you're ever going to think of. It's something that they thought of as their soul, as their spirit, and it's like a really powerful sort of feeling. And so I guess, I don't know, like connecting with people on that level is what makes me really happy. And then also something simple would be just like dancing, moving around, not being a completely still person, having the ability to not be handicapped or not be like a tree. I don't know.
Yeah.
And instead be a human is very nice.
You were mentioning how basically man created everything. What in a dream world, like, what would you create or leave behind?
Man created everything? What do you mean?
Like we came up with houses. We came up with jobs.
Like our imagination created the things that we created? Okay.
Yeah.
And what would I create in my dream?
What would you create? Like, what crazy outlandish visualization could you...
Oh, like if I was the architect or something, what would I make?
Yeah.
Maybe like a sort of church for like the God that we were talking about, like the God of the universe. Like,
yeah.
Not a church for any sort of special religion, but a church for the divine universe. If that's a God, then that's a God. And make it really beautiful. And I don't even know if I'd have the ability to design it. Probably not, but definitely not. But with a team, maybe I could. And I that would be really nice. Like I know people that used to build churches. It was like their life's work, and they really felt proud about doing it. And nowadays our churches don't really look that good. Nowadays our churches are like big, square buildings, and they're like mega churches or whatever. But they used to be like these buildings with tall spires and beautiful stonework, and maybe bridges that are really tall in the air, and like kind of like castles. Mm-hmm. Either that or like a castle. Like, to be a part of building something like that would be really cool.
You want to build something, or you want to create like a community?
I would like to build the actual building part. Not like build it, but maybe be the design work for it or help with it in some way.
You know, my dream is that I wanted
A place that can hold a community in the
Yeah.
future. Yeah.
my dream is that I want to make like a healing collective. Like I want to, in Hawaii, hopefully, where I, like basically a place where people can come and meet like-minded people and express ideas and feel.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah.
Before. That would be cool. I would go there and live there. I would like to live in Hawaii. But I guess in real life, my dream is to write a book series. And maybe in that book series, or more than one book series, I'd like to write more than one. And just keep writing my whole life. And however much that produces, whether it's, you know, 1 book to 50 books, something in that range. And in those books, I'd like to create, you know, beautiful citadels and ships and worlds and people and relationships, and use the things that I've seen in real life and create those things in that, and have people see themselves or see the same thing that I see when I read other books, and give them the same sort of feeling, a peek behind the curtain into the realness of a person, to be or something like that.
If anybody watching or listening to this right now wants to read any of your stuff, where can they find it?
I just have some things on Wattpad right now. I'm not even sure what my name is on Wattpad, so I don't know.
Maybe give it to me and then I'll put it in the bio.
Yeah, that could work. But my name's Parker White. I mean, I will hopefully publish soon. I'm not published right now, but I just have some short stories on Wattpad in different areas of it. I've gotten close. I struggle with endings, and but I have a few like over 70,000, 100,000 word manuscripts that I've worked on. And yeah, so I'm like in the budding stages of becoming a writer. And also it's like I'm obsessed with reading, and sometimes I get into these times where I only read and stop writing because I want to build on my style, and I start reading new things and sort of, in a way, get down on myself and think that I don't like the way I did this, and I wish I could write more like this, and I want to learn about how this person writes more, so I'll get more into reading about more of their stuff than writing. Yeah, hopefully someday you'll see like Parker White on the shelves somewhere, whether I'm published by a company or published on my own, but I'd like to get published by a publisher.
You know, I thought it was interesting because both you and I had like it felt like divine experiences to me. Like I was like, wow, that seems divine. Because my dream when I was like 17 was to be a shark diver in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And you wanted to be a writer. And we both went on cruises within like 2-3 months of each other. And you just randomly happened to be on a cruise where one of your favorite writers was doing like a seminar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to be on a cruise where I met the first 2 people that I met were shark divers in Oahu.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty weird how like we both like kind of set out desires, forgot about them, and then they naturally like come to us.
And I honestly didn't use that opportunity as good as I should have. I got invited to be a part of like one talk one night, and instead I went to go to the dance party with the headphone. So yeah, like I didn't use it as good as I should. But they weren't talking about anything super serious. They were just kind of talking about their favorite things or whatever. I don't know what they were going on about, but it wasn't a serious part of the meeting or anything. So maybe that's why I didn't do it. But I also I met Mary Robinette, who's this really good writer. I actually haven't read much of her work, but she's inspired some of the people that have read, and she's friends with some of the people that I have read. So I will eventually read her works. But
didn't you say that you met a bunch of people there that you were like, oh, can I read any of your work? And none of them had read it?
There were some people there that, yeah, it's kind of like a seminar. The seminar was called No Excuses, Writing No Excuses. They have a podcast and they talk about a lot of things, but I think a lot of people probably are like trying to stop making excuses and like start writing or something like that. But so I didn't know what was going on, but I just knew the people that were leading it, and so I was very excited to talk to them a little bit and meet them. And I got some kind words of encouragement from Mary Robinette.
How do you define success? Like, what's your definition of success?
Contentment, I guess. Just being content with what you did. Like, really being like, okay, if you did want to do something, then doing it. And if you didn't want to do something, then being okay with the fact that you didn't do it.
Yeah. In
that sort of way. Like, not living for what other people want you to live for, but at the same time being really content with what your choices are, and knowing that in a way your choices are good and not necessarily like super helpful to the world. Because one other good piece of advice I got was basically like you can't screw in 3 light bulbs with 2 hands. So don't do too much. Don't try to be too much. You can't be too much. You're only one human, do what you can, but don't overexert yourself, over push yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would just be like that. Those are like the things I try to define my success by. I don't want to drain myself out. And I also want to be proud of and content with the things that I have done. And that's about it, and basically. But also, I would like to, I would like other people, like especially my family, to be proud of me too. Maybe that's not a good thing to look for, but I would like that to happen. Like I don't want people to think like, oh, Parker, he wasted his life. And I also don't want to be like, Brian from Family Guy, like the dog who's always writing a book and he never finishes one. I don't want to be like someone that's just kind of coasting along with that and be like, oh, I'm content with that. Because even if I do sort of feel a contentment like that, I want to prove that I am a human that can create things too, in a way.
Do you feel proud of yourself?
Yeah, I'm proud of myself, yeah.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
I'm very proud of you. I love that you express yourself and that you create stuff, and you've made such a big difference in so many kids' lives, and I think you help Mom more than any of us have, really. You're always there for her, and you try and help the family and everything, and you make me feel better about myself too. You give me words of encouragement when I'm trying to create as well, and you probably are my biggest inspiration for creating and being my true self. It's like you make me want to be authentic.
Yeah, I try to get people to create stuff because it's so easy to not create nowadays. It's like very easy to just consume, and it's hard to create. But the thing is, we won't be able to consume forever unless people create. And consuming is nice, but you can only consume creations. So.
And I mean, sometimes you need to consume in order to create. But yeah. It's a balance.
It's like a natural balance. But if everybody stopped creating, then we wouldn't get anywhere. That's probably why we have so many things right now, like frickin', movies with the same movie, but like James Bond number 10 or Fast and Furious number 12 or this number. People aren't creating as much. People aren't coming up. What happened to Fast and Furious 1? Brand new idea that's not spun off of something that's already been spun off 10 times. Not saying it's bad to necessarily always rehashing things is good sometimes, but
money grab.
But like coming up with a fresh idea, like saying even like how fantasy, like Lord of the Rings came and kind of made the way that they made elves and the way that they made trolls and then a lot of people reused that forever, and now elves are this way and trolls are this way. When those things didn't even used to exist, that was just somebody's imagination that created that. So you could create something else or a different version of the troll that looks way different, or a different version of a elf that looks way different. It doesn't have to stick to one thing. You don't have to keep it that way. And people do change, but I think a lot of times nowadays we take the easy way out and just kind of use what people already created.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a consumption-based world, so they want to just give what has already been grabbed. They're like, that worked.
Yeah, that worked, so let's just do it again. Maybe they'll grab a little bit more.
Yeah.
But eventually that makes everything feel kind of stale.
Yeah, I agree. Without creativity, there's no joy. They say that the opposite of depression isn't joy, it's actually expression.
Yeah, I would say depression is basically not expressing yourself in any way, like in a way.
Yeah.
When you get really depressed, you just kind of stop expressing yourself at all, yeah.
Yeah.
That is kind of like what depression is, yeah. And expression would be the opposite of that. Even if you're expressing your emotions in sadness, at least you're expressing something, and then you can get past it. You can't really get through it unless you express it.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I do privates with people, I do tumbling classes. I used to be a cheerleader, we both did, and now I still teach. And people will have bad tumbling days, and I'll tell them, a lot of times I try to tell them that, well, don't worry, because if you didn't go through this white water now, if you didn't go through this turmoil this practice, you would have to go through it next practice. It's just, it doesn't go away. You're just pushing it back. So if you go through the hard part now, then you can maybe get to some clear waters over here. But if you just gave up today because you're frustrated that it's having a bad day, and you come back tomorrow, you're gonna you're gonna start where you left off in the hard part again. So you have to sometimes push through those parts.
When we did cheer, we were always taught it's 80% 80% mental and 20% physical as well.
Yeah. It felt like a lot of physical too, so it must be more mental. It felt like a lot of physical. It was just a lot of physical. So,
Okay.
it is mental though. Like once you get through it, you get through it. But yeah, like that it's hard. Oh my God.
Yeah, it is hard.
I miss cheer though.
Oh, I miss it so much. I miss it every day. I was watching.
People ask me, they're like, "Do you still?" And I'm like, "No." I actually have friends that stuck with it, past 18, and they ended up winning worlds.
Yeah.
Like, I never did that, but I still had fun doing it. But dang, maybe I should have stuck with it. Like, crap.
I loved it. Was a healthy adrenaline rush, and I loved performing. Those are my two favorite things. It was such, like, when you had a competition, it was such an adrenaline rush. And I think you used to be kind of like an adrenaline junkie, not as much anymore.
Well, I still am. Poker gives me adrenaline. Poker gives me a lot of adrenaline. It's like, it is a weird sort of adrenaline. It's like, it gives you the same adrenaline than anything. Like, I went skydiving, and when I went skydiving, I have to psych myself up to be happy about it. 'Cause it's almost like I don't even get adrenaline from it. I stopped getting adrenaline from dangerous things, which is kind of bad.
I chase that. I like skydiving. I want to dive with sharks.
Yeah, but like skydiving, I have to be like, okay, scream like you're having fun, because like I'm just dead inside. I'm like, whatever. Like, I'm just not scared. I have to make myself scared.
What do you think your biggest fear is?
Drowning. That I would be scared if I was drowning for sure.
Yeah,
I don't like that. I don't like. It might be because it might be rooted in vaping. Don't vape, but it might be rooted in vaping. It's like a fear of like my lungs having problems, and I don't know why. Like, I do the thing that gives my lungs problems, but then I have a fear of my lungs having problems. It's like a self-ingrained fear. But yeah, I would never want to drown or lose my source of breathing. That'd be bad. So yeah, I should probably quit vaping. Like that is like the so stupidest thing. I don't know why people do that, but it's like people that are like, oh, my worst fear is like dying. Okay, I don't want to make fun of people that are overweight right now, but dying of a heart attack, and I eat a lot of fast food every single day.
Yeah.
But it's like, you do the thing that everybody does something that hurts themselves in some way or another. Not everybody, I guess. Maybe some people live perfectly, but I think most people have like a thing that they know is bad for them, but they still do it. Don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Most people have some sort of crutch like that. Whether it's drinking, smoking, gambling, prostitutes. I don't know, people that have different
spending
things.
Money, things like that.
Porn, yeah, like everybody has some sort of weird addiction, and it's like, oh yeah.
I think it's a lifestyle. Once you get to like a health and wellness type of lifestyle, like meditating, journaling, and really dedicating to
But meditating can be one of the things. In a good way. It could be a good one.
I love meditating.
But it could be addicting. It could be like, whenever I was meditating a lot, which I don't do anymore, which I wish I did. But it's weird because when I was meditating a lot, I used to think, I don't think I could live without meditating. I used to think that because I'd be like, I feel so much better now that I've started this that I can't imagine not doing it. And then over time, I slowly stopped doing it. And then now I'm just like, oh, I guess I'm okay. but I don't think I feel as good. I think I feel more chaotic minded and whatever. And
yeah, it slows the mind, it stills the mind, and then it teaches you how to control the mind in day to day, like when everything's moving fast paced.
Yeah. But when I read, it's sort of a meditation, but it's not obviously not the same thing. But you have to pinpoint your thoughts. It's the same sort of training where you're pinpointing your thoughts into the one thing you're doing, and whether that's your imagination or whether that's your breathing through meditation, but you're trying to pinpoint all your thoughts to the one thing. Because if you're just sitting there and letting your thoughts still go like wherever they want, then it's not really meditation. You're just kind of just sitting there. But the act is supposed to be training your mind to focus on one thing. And that, getting better at that is really, really good thing, I think. It's just such a good thing. It helps, it'll make you better at everything, because that's how I guess that's how I learn fast when I learn things, is that I really put my full 100% self into whatever I'm learning. Like whenever I learned juggling, I didn't put those things down until I learned it. I didn't even sleep. Same with pretty much everything I learned. I can't, it's not like I can't, I could, but I don't want to stop until I'm
a master.
Not a master, but until I'm comfortable with stopping, which normally means at least like the first step completed, and then I'll go to sleep.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll end up giving it up after I get there, but sometimes I'll push it farther, and sometimes I'll come back to it later and kind of have to rework through that first stage again. Whatever, I'm not perfect. I there's things I could have stuck with and got better at and didn't, and then there's things I still do now that necessarily I probably shouldn't be doing, but I mean, that's life, I guess. That's being a human. I mean, I'm not a robot. I guess that's the robot's job is to do things perfectly, and our job to do things imperfectly.
Yeah, I think perfect is imperfect. Like when I make clothes or I make art, like when I make mistakes, I'm like, that's what makes it mine. You know?
Yeah, true. Perfect can mean other things too. Like it just has to mean exact. Like it could be a bad sort of perfect in a way. Like things worked out perfectly, and whatever perfectly means means
It's your perspective.
yeah, just your perspective.
Okay, well, that's this episode. I'm really happy if you listened till the end. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you all for
Do you put this on
watching.
YouTube?
YouTube and Spotify.
Do you have subscribers already?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Well, this is the first time I've been doing something like this, but it was nice doing it. I enjoyed it. Thank you, Morgan, for inviting me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really happy.
Sorry, I don't have anything available online, really, to be honest. But
Don't you make
someday
YouTube
I will.
videos? Do you make YouTube videos?
No.
No?
I made some gaming stuff at one point, but not.
You didn't.
Doesn't even have my name in it or my face or my.
Oh, okay.
It's just like footage of whatever. But yeah, maybe one day I'll make one, or maybe whenever I finish something, then I can come back on and just talk about whatever I wrote or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, this is this episode of Snow White and the Seven Does, and we'll see you guys soon.